So hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again here in Stratford-upon-Avon today. I've come down here because I want to test out a lens that I've bought recently. I'll show you that lens in just a while, but in the meantime I'm going to have a wander around and take a few photos and also get off this bandstand, because where I'm recording at the moment it seems very echoey to me. Does it seem echoey to you? I am standing in the middle of a bandstand out of the way of everybody, and it has obviously got all the sides open, so I don't really know why it's echoing so much in here, but it just seems a little bit echoey. Anyway, I'm going to move outside of this bandstand and I'll show you the lens that I'm talking about in just a moment. So guys, the lens that I'm trying out today is this one. It's the 24 to 50mm RF 24 to 50mm f4.5 to f6.3 I believe, or maybe 7.1. Yeah, I'll put all the details on the screen for you, but basically this is a kit lens. I bought the Canon EOS R8 a few weeks ago, which I'm currently recording 4K footage on, but yeah, when I bought that I also got this kit lens as part of the deal, and it's all right, but I'm really trying to test it out today and put it through its paces and see if I can get anything decent out of it. So let's have a look at it in more detail. So the lens has got this plastic construction which actually feels quite sturdy and rugged, to be quite honest, and robust, but there's no weather sealing on it, and there is one other feature on it that kind of surprises me a little bit, and it's something I've never seen in any lens before. I don't know if you can tell, just on the barrel just there is a little line and a dot. That is the position that the lens is in when you take it out of the box. That's the default position. That's not part of the zoom range. What actually happens is when you take a shot, once you put the lens onto the camera, you actually have to physically move that line to 24mm, where it is just now, just there, or if you want to zoom out, you move to 50mm, sorry, zoom in, you move to 50mm just like that. But you'll also find that as you move from 50 back to 24, watch what happens to the barrel of the lens. It starts to come back in a little bit and then starts to go back out as you go back to 24mm, which seems a bit odd because the lens barrel there is longer at 24mm, which is the wider end of the range, and then slightly narrower, or slightly shorter, so should I say, at 50mm, which is the narrower end of the range. I haven't quite worked that one out, and I still can't quite work out why you have to kind of move it some distance before you actually get to the zoom part of the lens anyway. It's quite a strange one. Let me know in the comments what you think about that, and for now I'm going to move on and see if I can get some decent photos with this lens. Let me just take a moment here to interrupt the vlog for a moment to let you know that I've got a 2025 calendar available to purchase now. It's an A3 size calendar and it's single side printing, so if you wanted to keep the images at the end of the year you could do, simply by cutting off the calendar and framing the images up and putting them on your wall if that's what you want to do. It's £15 to purchase the calendar, and if you would like one, just let me know in the comments that you would like one and I'll get back in touch with you and let you know how you can purchase that. Cheers guys, back to the video. I've just taken a photo of that beautiful weeping willow tree behind me, just to prove the point that this 24 to 50mm lens may be a fairly decent lens for a landscape photographer, particularly somebody just starting out and somebody walking long distances and trying not to carry so much weight in their bags. It's quite a lightweight lens, it's very small, and so it makes it quite a bit easier than carrying around a big 14 to 35mm lens, although that's exactly what I'm carrying as well today. But yeah, if you're on a long journey, say doing some landscape photography, or you perhaps doing some street photography in a street somewhere, in a city or a town, it may be a decent lens for something like that. So I think it's decent for landscape photography. However, with its maximum aperture of f4.5, it doesn't really give you very much background blur, because your depth of field is too deep really. It's f4.5. You can't go any wider than that, and so you don't get a shallower depth of field, which doesn't matter too much in landscape photography. Obviously, sometimes you'd be looking at more sort of shooting at f11 or f16 for your shots, which means you'd get a much deeper depth of field anyway, and you get more and more of the scene in focus. So I don't really think that maximum aperture of f4.5 is any kind of problem at all for a landscape photographer. However, there are some limitations to it, I believe. So I've just walked along the side of the canal, which is itself at the side of the River Avon here in Stratford-upon-Avon. And I've come slightly out of the centre of the town. You can probably hear the road noise behind me. That's the main road going into the town. But just here right behind me, I've got this little scene here, which is basically you've got an old lock gate here on the canal, and then there's these frameworks here which kind of span over the canal itself, and I think that's just basically a guide to make sure the canal boats can guide the way through that little space there from the canal. I think it makes quite an interesting composition, particularly for the 24 to 50mm lens that I've got. So I'm going to set up here and see if I can find a composition on this one. But I've got to tell you, I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to be on this particular spot. As I've walked up here, let me see if I can turn you around. There's a pathway just here, and along the end of this pathway there's a gate which was open. I didn't have to open it, it was already open. But there's a sign on the gate that says authorised or boat people only. I don't think I'm either authorised to be here nor a boat person. So if somebody comes along all of a sudden and decides to lock that gate on me, I'm going to be in trouble. But I'm going to stop here anyway and take this photo. Now, I mentioned there were some limitations to this particular lens. Look at that tree behind me. I'm going to have to stop here and get a shot of that. Anyway, I mentioned there were some limitations to the 24 to 50mm lens, and it's all to do with that maximum aperture of f4.5, and in particular portrait photography. I'm going to put some self-portraits on screen for you in just a moment. Don't worry about the fact that I am the modelling talent in those photos. Pay attention to the background blur, and you let me know in the comments if you think there is enough. I don't believe there is, and there could be two reasons for that. One of those reasons, which is less likely but it's possible, is that maybe the background is too close to the subject to get any kind of blur in the background. The other reason could be there's not enough depth of field, or there's too much depth of field, sorry, because of that f4.5 aperture. You let me know what you think. Back at the bandstand I was at the start of the vlog. I haven't quite finished yet. I've still got a little bit more I want to show you here in Stratford-upon-Avon. But did you notice in those self-portrait images that the background blur wasn't very blurry? Quite a lot of those images it was still very sharp. And like I said earlier, that's partly because maybe the background itself wasn't far enough away from me, but also mainly because of that f4.5 maximum aperture of the 24 to 50mm lens. That's not necessarily a big problem. Like I say, I could probably overcome that if the background itself was a little bit further away, although it's not always easy in a town like this to find a background that's far enough away to take portrait images. So that's a little bit of an issue, but not really a big thing. I'm going to move on now because I believe there's a spot a little way over in that direction called Bantock Gardens, which is going to be a great area for street photography, I believe. So I'm going to go and have a look at that and see if I can get some shots over there, again with the 24 to 50mm lens. I didn't really give you much information as to why the background blur being blurred out in a portrait image is so important. Well, basically when you're taking a portrait shot, you want the subject, which is the main model in the photo to be the main area of retention. You don't really want the background drawing your attention away from that subject. However beautiful the background might be, you really want that to be blurred out so that it's only the model in the scene that is the centre of attention. Wasn't she amazing? It's great to see a bit of culture here in Stratford-upon-Avon. Speaking of which, culture, Stratford-upon-Avon of course is where William Shakespeare was born and brought up, and just behind me, don't know how well you can see it, just over my shoulder behind these trees, we've got the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and Bantock Gardens is here just in front of it. And I know there's going to be a couple of shots just over here somewhere that I'd like to try and take, just making the most of street photography really. There's a shot just over here, just over my shoulder, there's a water feature, I don't know if you can see it in the distance there, and there's benches all around it and there's people sitting at the benches, and I'm wondering if I can go and take a picture of the water feature but just get some of those people in the edges of the images with that 24 to 50mm lens. Should be able to do it, so I'm going to give that a try. It's probably going to be a good idea to try and handhold some of these shots, purely and simply because there's a lot of people around here at the moment and I don't want to make myself too conspicuous by what I'm doing. So just hand-holding and just firing off the odd shot here and there would be a good idea. At 50mm you can just about stand far enough away from other people in the scene that they don't realise what you're doing, but also you get a decent depth of field from the 50mm focal range, purely and simply because obviously you've got the f4.5 maximum aperture, which at 50mm goes down to f6.3, not f7.1 as I said earlier, but it is f6.3. But at 50mm and f6.3 you get a decent amount of depth in the image, so you can see the people in the image, and you can also get in focus the subject just behind those people or just in front of those people. So often the people don't know that you're actually taking a photo of them and they think that you're just taking a photo of the scene in front of you. I did find one other limitation to using the 24 to 50mm lens, and it's specific really to recording vlog footage. Now, in order to demonstrate what the issue is, I'm going to have to try and show you using this lens and then by switching out to the 24 to 50mm lens so you can see the difference. But essentially this is the 14 to 35mm lens at its widest angle of 14mm. So this is the kind of footage you get quite a lot going on in the background behind me, so you can see some of the scene going on, you can tell exactly where I am and what I'm doing, or you can at least recognise what's going on. But now I'm going to switch over to the 24 to 50mm lens and put that into 24mm so you can see the difference that it makes. So that is the 24 to 50mm at 24mm, and you can see the massive difference it makes to the background and also how big my head is within the scene, and it takes up virtually all of the scene. And this is while I'm holding the camera, hand holding the camera at arm's length, and obviously it makes a big difference. Now I couldn't do this obviously with the 14 to 35mm lens because hand holding the camera just for this long would really start to hurt my arm using the much heavier, much bigger lens. However, I still think that the width of the scene is not quite wide enough for a vlog style footage. But if I was recording just standard video without vlogging, and if I was just recording the scene in front of me, then maybe 24mm would be just about right anyway. I think at the very worst I can just about get away with it for a little while whilst hand holding the camera with the 24 to 50mm lens on, but I would prefer to use the 14 to 35 myself. So I've switched back to the 14 to 35mm, and like I said earlier, you can see how much of a difference that makes to the background scene behind me and how small it makes my head look in the scene. So I don't really obscure the scene very much with this kind of shot, and that's why I personally prefer this particular lens to the 24 to 50mm for shooting a vlog. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is finish the vlog off here. If you have enjoyed watching this video, and if it's been any way informative to you, please let me know in the comments what you think of it. And also please remember to give the video a thumbs up, as I always say, and please remember to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I look forward to seeing you on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.